If you're just looking at the end goal of like the attention or success without looking at all the steps that come for that, like you're probably not going to make it very far, which is unfortunate.
This is Champaign is Also a Band podcast. One songwriter, one song. I'm Sven, your host for a journey into the music of Champaign-Urbana. Recorded in the Blue Box studio with a songwriter from the Champaign-Urbana music scene, past or present. Champaign is Also a Band podcast is proud to be a part of the Champaign Showers Podcast Network. Welcome to Champaign is Also a Band podcast. In today's bonus episode, I have Robert K from Robert K Multimedia. So, Robert, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Let's just jump into it. What is Robert K Multimedia? Or is that too big of a question?
Yeah, that's a big one. I get a lot. It's essentially just my content, my work, an all-encompassing term that will cover everything from, my photo and video work to my promotional work to, booking and whatever else that I'm into. It started off as Robert K Recordings, and then it's felt too limited, so I had to up that to multimedia.
In the notes that you sent me, you said that you started off with like video and photography as part of this venture to begin with. Tell me a little bit about that.
So I had some background in like photography in high school and things like that, and then later on did some self-taught video game editing, and this is like before the wave of where it was super accessible to like make your own clips and that sort of thing. Like you had to have a secondary unit to rip and record and edit and all that. I'm not going to share the channel name, but there's like old YouTube video game channels of mine and things like that. So I was doing that for a while. By chance, I ended up getting this position with Summer Camp Music Festival, which was called the camp counselor position, which is essentially kind of like a street team ambassador person on steroids, like super juiced up with like kind of like a street teamer, but with media credentials and like good access to artists and things like that. And in that, once that position opened up for me, I really started digging in on the photography and the video work as far as like what was around that music festival, and then by association into the Canopy Club and into the Champaign-Urbana scene. So that's like kind of where like on the more serious level I got into the photo and video work. The stories kind of just strays all over. It was never a situation where I was like, hey, this is me and I'm gonna do this like start to finish. Like that has never happened. It's just I'm all over the place, and maybe to a detriment at times. I just chase what I want to chase, at the time. From
being the camp counselor at summer camp, how did you get involved with Jay Goldberg Events and Entertainment? So Jay Goldberg's, I'm just going to call it JG from here on out. Sure. They're the parent company, like the promotional company that runs Summer Camp Music Festival. So when I went in this camp counselor position, it's a volunteer ambassador type thing, really just started introducing myself that way to the company, and in a sense kind of unofficially interning, right? Most people come into the company, go in and have like a formal internship period and that sort of stuff, which I didn't necessarily go through because I was just kind of around already. And then that leads to covering some shows and events at the Canopy Club, which is owned by JG, which gets me working with the artist more. So I was already like a fan, right? And kind of around the other side of the industry from like just being a fan and the hang around and being like and I was an active fan, like I was a part of it, but not on the creative side, right? I was just taking. I wasn't necessarily giving other than just like showing up. There's a little bit of giving for showing up. And
true, we spend a lot of money and time.
At what point did you decide to start the Cypher Series or the Cypher Saturdays?
Okay, so first, I guess I'd go back a little bit to like the summer camp and canopy stuff. I was kind of like doing some video projects with Trouble Chasing, like at their very initial formation, like at the Battle of the Bands, that they were solo artists that turned into Trouble Chasing. Like I was there and a part of that with the camera. So that was a part of it. I had the concept for a while, and it kind of been inspired by their video programs called like, you know, the Cypher Effect and things like that. And obviously you've got the Double XL Cypher, the BET Cypher, and, you know, big platforms like that. So that's an existing thing. And then there was artists before me, promoters before me in the town, like the Great Thinkers, for example, who were known for throwing ciphers and doing ciphers. And I got to, you know, witness and cover and be around some of those. And then this town hit a period when they shut everything down. I'm not talking about the pandemic. This is when they shut down Cowboy Monkey's like open mic, like the Ingram was running. And the town did not have like any, like zero hip hop platforms. There wasn't anything digital going on. There wasn't any open mics. There wasn't any venues doing shows, like zero. I could be wrong, but I think it was something like the whole town went like a calendar year and there was like one rap show at Cowboy Monkey, Jarrell Young. It was like the very last show at Cowboy that they did. You know, in that period, there's just a big gap. And like, I was just getting a little bit more invested, you know, and seeing Mother Nature and seeing, you know, Jarrell and, you know, seeing, you know, big crowds downtown. Like I was able to witness High Dive, you know, and they're just huge rap crowds and it was all just locals and really, you know, packing the place. And then it dropped off to like zero, right? So there's just a huge gap. And I don't know if there was like a specific moment or thing. Like there were certain events that inspired me, like a couple Great Thinkers events, and then like the beginning of Trouble Chasing, and then like the very first Thanksgiving event, which is like in the basement at Blitz and Chips, which was one of the DIY venues here. And I kind of mess up the timeline, like where the starting points were, like, but those were all like in this kind of same period. And it just came to me. It's like, hey, I got the camera, so I'm going to start just building out content, right? I'm going to just do it myself. We're not going to wait for people. We're not going to, you know, hey, help me do this for me, right? I'm just going to use my own resources, my own talent. Me being, you know, I got the camera. I'm self-taught editor. I already had kind of the network, right? From being the fan and from being around, right? So I could approach people, and then I knew people well enough or willing enough to approach other people for me. Right? They're like, oh, he's solid. So they would connect me to the next person. And then I just got the ball rolling on what was initially started was supposed to be just a pair of video shoots, a pair of ciphers with like 4 artists on each. That was the original concept. Got a lot of early help from this guy named Jordan. I don't know. He probably doesn't listen to this, but shout out to Jordan. He helped like kind of build out some of the early rosters, and then got a lot of help early from Brian Dolliner from IMC, you know, hooked up with him. He helped out a lot. Mike Ingram, Marcus Thomas, RIP Marcus, you know, got me into like certain venues, Exile on Main and Soma's, to do like the locations, right? Sure. So when we did these video shoots, we had these unique locations around town to go to. So it wasn't just a Cypher Effect video where it's just in like a random, you know, graffiti alley or whatever else you would typically see. That's not a shot at Sipyard. That was not a shot there. I'm just saying, like, in a lot of these videos you'll have that feel. That's kind of where it started, right? And it's just, I'm going to make these video projects and highlight some of these artists. Because the ball got rolling and we just had so much like talent and so much thought, we decided to shoot 4 of them. So it went from a 2 video project to a 4 video project, got those out, then started releasing those. I think it was like the very end of 2016 is when those started releasing. They had a ton of buzz around town. Everybody talking about, not just on the videos, but all the side threads, all the side conversations, and tons of positive response to it. Also kind of the negativity to it as well. Like, you know, where's this person? Where's that person? You know, that sort of stuff. With all the conversation that came from those first video releases, naturally a lot of people were like, I want to do this. I want the next one. Where's mine? Some people to the point of being like aggressive about it and like having problems with me because they wanted to be a part of it, right? Mm-hmm. I'm only one person, you know, this isn't a paid job. Nobody's paying me. It's all self on the side, all, and you know, I'm having help with those, like some of the key people I've mentioned. I brought in people to help with the audio, like to do professional tier audio stuff, right? That I'm not capable of. The response was, I want to do this. I want to rap. You know, where's my turn? So I decided to do a live event with open format Cypher that I would record. And the premise was, you want to rap, right? You got it. You're the man. You're the one. Come do it. Come do it live, right? It's all the same people. It's the same production team. It's, you know, we still got our DJs. So come do it live. And we did our first event at the IMC. I think it was in January of 2017. Or maybe at the end of 2016. I can't remember. It was the very first event was at IMC. It was an open invite cypher, meaning, you know, anybody could go up and rap over industry beats. Our first DJs were Carlos Westgiles from the Ideal DJ crew, and then DJ Belly. Those were the first DJs at that event. And we also had a rap battle, which was kind of a whole another side spin-off of the Cypher series. But that was Nick G and Skelly, which was the first rap battle that had been done in Champaign-Urbana in years, probably since like 2013 or 12 or something, when they were doing them downtown. And that was like a modern format battle rap. Battle rap was a very different looking thing when they did them back in the day. So that was the first event, and it went well. It wasn't like amazing, but it was good. It was 50, 70 people, something like that for the first event at the IMC. I mean, IMC is not always easy to get a ton of people there, especially if they're not used to going to shows there. That did well enough that we decided to do the next one at the Canopy Club, take it to the big stage. That did very well. Almost did somewhere around 200 or something like that, which is pretty good for a community-based hip-hop event. I don't think it was like a Friday or Saturday either. I think it was a Thursday or Tuesday maybe. We're going to have our 100th show this year, probably.
I kind of want to pause just for a second and maybe what defines something as a cypher so that people can picture exactly what that means when you say cypher.
I'll do my best to answer what a cypher is, and somebody more educated can probably correct me. I'm pretty sure a cypher comes from Latin roots of like cert or circa or something like that, meaning ring. Huh. Meaning circle. A cypher is a circle. When people sit around rapping, right, and they're rapping to each other, what organically happens? What naturally happens?
They form a circle.
Huh. So that's the cypher. Don't drop the cypher. That's you passing around, you know, the lyrics. Don't drop the cypher. Huh. So that's where it comes from. At the root of the hip hop of the Champaign Cypher series, you know, that's what it is. It's bringing the people together in a circle to rap, you know, without the safety nets, you know. I mean, we do all types of projects and platforms and different types of shows, but at the root of it, it's just people in a circle rapping. And it's really because of like the video revolution, it's a half circle is how you see it portrayed. Like when you watch the XXL Cypher, any of those are actually half circles because the audience is the other half of the circle, right? That side of the wall. But the rappers are still in a circle on that side. It's just we're the other side of it.
That's interesting. That has totally changed my thought about what the cypher was. And in some ways, I had it more of in my mind, I thought it analogous to, don't at me, but kind of an idea of hip hop, but open mic. There's a certain open mic quality to it, but
definitely
it's not necessarily for the focus of people being like, okay, here, I'm performing this for people. It sounds to me more community building, right? Like in a way.
At its root, I think just with myself being attached to it, like being a media person, right?
Yeah.
You just get the presentation and you get the outward acknowledgement because we can produce that product, right? And that's what sells tickets. We couldn't just we have a flyer and be like, hey guys, come rap in a circle. That's not going to bring anybody in. So you gotta present the product and the experience in a different way. But at its root, back to the IMC, it wasn't this big there was no platform. I didn't even have pages. There was no Champaign Cypher Series page. You know, there was no platform for it like that. We were just doing the event. At its root, it's a very like raw kind of hip hop thing.
It's funny to me that as soon as you brought it around to this idea of it being you're passing around in a circle, it made me rethink my interpretation of what a cipher was. Sorry for that weird tangent, but I just felt like it would be good for everybody that may or may not be familiar with hip-hop to know what that meant.
I tried to teach that to a group of it's Zen's class.
Yeah.
And it didn't quite go over so smoothly with like the 8-year-olds. I don't think they quite had the patience to like follow me through that one. What we're coming up on is the 100th live event. This doesn't include digital stuff like our verse for verse tournament or, the first Cypher episode releases. Doesn't include those. Those are just pieces of content out there. But yeah, we are approaching, I'd have to do the math, but yeah, this year we should hit the show number 100. And that would include Cypher Saturdays, which is the hip hop showcase. And, also include like pop-up ciphers we've done at Exile, or even after parties, things that weren't necessarily like promoted outwardly, things that we did in people's houses and things like that.
You had a show at the IMC, and then you had Canopy Club, and then you had some over at Blackbird, and then Nola's, and now Nola's is no more. Now it's moved to what location?
We've really done all over. Like, I did a run of shows at Cowboy Monkey. We did Bring the Pain. We did a run of very successful shows at Cowboy. Outside of that Jarrell show, those were like the next 4 last hip-hop shows. Dang near just like in downtown in general. We had a couple of sporadic ones like post-pandemic, like at venues, but really hip-hop never has came back. So we did Cowboy, and just really it just kind of came down to JG owned. So I already have an affiliation with the company through the summer camp stuff, but they had the venues that would consistently work with me, that I showed that I could do profitable shows. All the other venues, like I said, like Cowboy Monkey and downtown, they were just ready to shut you down. Like every show you have like the downtown Illuminati hanging over your head wanting to cancel, because there's a broken bottle in the parking lot at a bar. Oh no, let's shut down the music scene.
I feel like it works better in Urbana nowadays, but do you ever see that coming back to Champaign downtown?
Not with the people that own all the property and the people that have the most interest down there. It's never going to be like that type of live scene. It's just going to be high rent and cookie cutter stuff. Yeah. I mean, the space like that. There's a space downtown. No pun. And I don't really know those guys, but I know that they're putting the work in to actually have a genuine live interest. You know what I mean? And I can tell from the people just they're affiliated with or whatever that it's like the right way. Just knowing from the music, and I'm not counting their pockets or whatever. But early on, you're probably taking a lot of losses and a lot of time learning and running 3 jobs, like the cooks, making burgers and running sound, right? Like that's how you have to get those things like off the ground early.
I read earlier in your notes that Cypher Saturdays was the longest running Cypher in Central Illinois.
Longest running consistent hip hop showcase, which is just kind of a loose way to say that we've been doing it a while, right?
Yeah.
But like I said, Champaign's definitely not had, any sort of consistency or anything, but just through the strength of JG was able to maintain, a consistent monthly event at what was Blackbird pre-pandemic, and then back after pandemic into like Blackbird and Nola's, and then Nola's shut down, and then we moved it over to Canopy Club. Now, it hasn't been like every single month consistently. Like, we've missed some, and obviously like the pandemic, we didn't have them during the pandemic, but the brand is still there and it's still functioning, and we're still getting more dates. So it is the longest running one.
What is the pattern? When does it happen on a Saturday? Which Saturday of the month does it happen?
There is no consistent Saturday, namely because it's hard to compete like specifically at Canopy Club, it's hard to compete with these huge touring artists because they want the Saturdays. So until we can get our local hip hop shows up to, 500, 600 people, we won't be able to really compete with that. So we kind of pick our spots. Sometimes we'll juggle. They'll do like a big rental. They'll do formal and sororities in the main room, and we'll do our Cypher Saturdays event in the front room. Right. Sure. So got to get creative.
Yeah.
Find the space where you can. And that can be troublesome sometimes, and you might miss a date or miss a week here or there. You just try to, make up for an extra show later on, when you can. Beggars can't be choosers, kind of.
Well, if people are interested in, attending or performing even, where would they look to find out when that was happening, or like how do they sign up, so to speak?
The Champaign Cypher Series Instagram, which is at Champaign Cypher, that's the place to start. And then more specifically, if you just watch the Canopy Club website, like as long as we're doing the shows all over there, you should be able to keep up on Cypher Saturdays. There's more info about, how to sign up or get involved. If you want to get involved, just come to the shows. That's the best way to do it. A lot of people will send messages or ask friends of friends and be like, oh, I want to perform. How do I get involved and all that? But they won't take the effort to actually just come to the show. So in my head, if you don't have that sort of, follow through to just come to the show and introduce yourself, then you're not necessarily somebody I'm, going to work with and probably be able to grow anything with if you can't take that small step.
Well, and it also seems like if you want to be ready, you want to see how it goes. You don't want to be jumping in thinking exactly how it's going to go. And then
a lot of people are maybe, I don't know, it's definitely not exclusive to hip hop. There's a lot of arts. I think you see it in sports and stuff too. Some people are maybe just in it for what they think the image is, right? The image or the things that come with it, and not necessarily losing the art, or like not coming from a place of the art or sharing their art, right? Which is where it should all start, right? Then you can take it to live industry and worry about selling tickets. But if you start with worrying about making money, it's typically not the best approach. You'll turn people off, and you think you're going to skip a lot of the steps where the things you have to do to get better and to be better. If you're just looking at the end goal of like the attention or success without looking at all the steps that come for that, like you're probably not going to make it very far, which is unfortunate.
Champaign is also a band podcast, is proud to support Jubilee Cafe. Jubilee Cafe is a free weekly meal program at Community United Church of Christ, 805 South 6th Street in Champaign, Illinois. Jubilee Cafe serves a home-cooked meal from 5 to 6:30 each Monday. Their mission is to feed hungry people by cooking healthy, delicious meals and by serving their guests restaurant-style with servers waiting on tables. Jubilee Cafe is open to anyone who cares to eat with them. Because food insecurity among students is so high, they serve students as well as others in and around the Champaign-Urbana community who struggle with hunger. Meals are free to all and will be served each Monday evening, located in the accessible lower level of the building at 6th and Daniel Streets in Champaign. For more information on the meal or how to volunteer, go to the Jubilee Cafe CUCC Facebook page or email them at jubilee.cafe@community-ucc.org. That's jubilee.cafe@community-ucc.org. Welcome back. So, Robert, do you have a favorite Champaign-Urbana venue?
Probably a little biased, to be fair, maybe a little bit, but I at the same time, it's an objective opinion. It'd be the Canopy Club, because I was sneaking into the Canopy Club as a kid trying to go to the shows. They've always had the best shows. Nobody else has booked Snoop Dogg and Wiz and Method Man and the Pumpkins and who. It's not even close. And as far as like being a hip hop promoter, there's only one venue that's consistently held the doors open. Only one. So that's where I'm at with it.
To even clarify more, it's not even just having national hip-hop acts. It's about having like local hip-hop acts perform there as well.
Correct. It's just beyond just the big ones. It's had the success of lots of local bands, and that includes bands like Sun Stereo that were regulars for years, and that's a Canopy Club thing.
Yeah.
At least in my head. Like, obviously they're their own brand, but in my head they're like attached.
I'm curious though, you've been doing this for quite some time. Do you have like a favorite Canopy memory from like a local performance? I just love to point out the local performance, but is there a favorite moment that you might have?
Man, that's tough. First, I'll give you the non-local that you didn't ask for. Probably the Method Man show. There was just this insane Method Man performance, and then got to hang out a little bit after or whatever. That was a special moment. He was touring his 421 album, and Anthony Mackie, who is now Captain America, was like there at the show, which was he was Papa Doc at the time. He was 8 Miles Papa Doc before he was Captain America. But he was at the show, which was interesting. And then as far as local goes, I remember there was it wasn't Canopy. It was a Sun Stereo benefit / EP release party out at, I think it was Mike and Molly's I think it was Mike and Molly's. I forget the name of the project, but it was this EP that they released. I remember that being one of the funnest shows around here I've ever been to. Because it was just like, just everybody was there. Just, anybody and everybody was at that show. And then as far as like the hip hop chronology, maybe the very first Trouble Chasing show, like them as a group, which was at Canopy Club, and I was doing video for. That was like after their summer camp battle of the bands, and then right before summer camp. It wasn't like anything, it wasn't like some monster show or anything, but just being there at that point, right, like at the first one, that was kind of cool to see them. Now they're doing State Farm Center or whatever.
Not to go on a huge side track, but those two, Sandman Slim and Chase Baby, the chemistry between those two is amazing. I don't know, I can only imagine what their first show would have been like, but I would hope that they would have had that. That may have been developed later, but
no, they definitely had some level of chemistry early. When they put the album together, they were living together, so they definitely had that chemistry at that point. They were in like Bender album mode for however long. I don't know, you'd have to ask them, but there was a period of time where whatever happened in the universe, they were living like at the same time. Trouble Chasing came together and make an album. They were living together, so.
It's weird for me to be like, I'm so proud of them, but honestly, they're just...
No, it's great. It's great to watch them succeed, and I'm happy. Like with the big Duke Deuce show, this is like the heaviest investment or biggest one I've directly been involved with, and I'm happy that I can put them on as support for this big artist, because they've definitely been an inspiration and worked with me along the way. They've done more free sets and more free shows for me than anybody.
Do you think we're headed in the right direction in terms of making hip hop in Champaign-Urbana bigger, or what do you think would make it? I'm not sure exactly what the right question is, but
healthier.
Healthier.
I think the main thing is just having more spaces to do it, but then having the right people involved. There's a lot of shady shit, like pay to play, people charging for performances and things like that, and it's just crooked. That's kind of going to be an unpopular opinion, because a lot of people, especially in hip-hop, just are like accept it as that's just the way it is, but that's just the way it is has never been really a great reason to continue doing something, especially if it's messed up.
I remember Chase Baby saying that one of his first big shows, they were like, oh, we'll pay like it'll be however much he said, and he's like, wow, I only have to pay that much. And then they were like, no, we're gonna pay you, which I don't know, he tells the story so much better than I do.
It's well, that's the thing with JG, like if you're doing a show through the company, we'll pay people. Like, we don't charge people to perform, but and that's the other thing with hip hop, like that's the only space that it gets away with it. You know what I mean? Like all these other, like none of these other genres deal with that. It's nonsense.
Why do you think that?
Oh man,
that started? I mean,
I think there's a lot of reasons. I mean, I have theories, and maybe this is a theory I've had for a while, and I could be wrong. And there's obviously probably lots of layers and nuance to it, but I think some of it's just like freaking racism. Like I really do, like like systematic type stuff, not having the opportunity, not having the right music programs in the right spaces for the right people. So when you come up, there's all these people fighting for this small piece of the pie, and there's not nobody, but there's not enough direction or instruction. Be like, don't pay to that. Don't rap over your vocals. Don't get suckered in by this skeezy promoter who's going to like sell you a dream, right? Whereas I feel like a lot of the other genres have a system set up in a place and instruction and education for upcoming artists to not fall into those pitfalls, and hip hop doesn't. And hip hop is just like, oh, I'm going to pay this money and that's my road to the top. And it's just like, no, go get your mastering right. Go, get your licensing, own your songs. Like there's so much to do in like, as far as being a professional musician, and it's not that shady promoter stuff, which I think that's one of the big problems. It's like you want more spaces, but you got to have the right people. You can't have like predatory behavior like that, as far as like so I can say, oh, we need 10 more hip hop shows, right? And that'd be fun. But if half of them are crooked and just like whoever's paying is getting to perform, that's not building the scene. That's not doing anything for the scene. That's not enriching anybody's, career. Nobody ever got whisked away on a plane by buying on to be the 5th, 6th opener to, on a show in front of a bunch of people nobody cares about. Like that's never happened. But for some reason, that's the dream that's constantly getting sold. Like I said, I could be totally off, but I feel like that might be one of the factors in the whole pay to play and why hip hop is so vicious in that sense. It's like the Wild West sometimes. And like I said, it just doesn't happen in any other genre. All the other genres I work with, they would look at you fucking crazy. Right. If you tried to make these sort of demands, like the way that hip hop artists get treated. And they shouldn't be treated like that. It should not be like that. So that's the thing. I've never charged anybody to perform, and I don't plan on it, and I pay people when I can. And if I can, I'm on the level about it, Right. It's like, we're not making any money, bro. This one's for us.
It's the most popular genre like in the world, and yet
it still can't get the space.
Right.
Well, and when you think about like if there were more spaces, that would put the leverage on the pay people to not do that anymore, because in theory you're going to have more people offering free space and spaces where you can get paid. So if you've got free space, that takes the leverage out of the crooked promoters that want to charge everybody to do anything, because there's free spaces to go perform at.
And I mean, honestly, I think hip hop manages to be one of the most popular because it's a genre that can be identified but not necessarily defined, which I think is just through the nature of creating beats using samples or creating using every single genre you can think of as background. Anyway, sorry, that's my
disco. Disco's where that's where it starts. He's looping disco tracks and things like that.
Right. It's like the genre that encompasses so many other genres all at the same time. No wonder it's the most popular, right?
Yeah, it is kind of unique in that sense that like all the American music is all just like an amalgamation, right? Where just like we're in a melting pot of cultures, all of our music is, hip hop's probably the first one that's like really, 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 really our own, like developed, right? Everything else has a lot of roots and things, maybe rock and roll, but I feel like all the folky stuff is like, that sounds like European music kind of, the strings and stuff, but hip hop is like us for sure, right? Like everything's us, like, because we're sampling stuff that was created by us.
Yeah.
So it's very, very unique in that sense.
I want to ask like the big question, which is, what makes, and I'm going to define it even more by saying like, normally the question is what makes a good music community, but I'd like to hear maybe what you think makes a good hip hop community.
I think collaboration for hip hop, working with lots of different artists, lots of promoters, different venues, as long as it's good business and you know what I mean, you don't have to work with everybody, but I think being open to collaboration and supporting shows and projects that aren't your own, that's another major part of it that just breeds goodwill and good faith amongst the artist. And you can't run successful shows with just the artist hanging out, right? That's a method that just will fail. It always does. You can't just promote to the bands and their friends. You have to bring in other people. But I think that if the bands and the artists are truly promoting themselves, like that, their fans will follow them. The band is the brand. So if they truly engage and truly support each other, I think the fans will cross-pollinate with each other.
What do you think Champaign-Urbana does well for the hip-hop community?
I don't know why we're so dope. We're just dope. Champaign-Urbana has a lot of dope talent. There's definitely like as talented MCs in places like Springfield and Bloomington, but there's a lot in Champaign. The university pipeline is part of that, right? Having talent and some funding in some spaces, although the university doesn't really make like a huge impact on the locals. There definitely are some points, but like they're not reaching into the neighborhoods all over. It's not like that, right? But they do what they can, and they do their university lane. I think that's an important part. And then also just like the government stuff, like shutting down places in Chicago, people migrating here. So we got a lot of links to, the city of Chicago, where places in like, say, Danville might not have that strong of connection, or same with Bloomington. I think maybe those connections bring artistry and talent and perspective that might not come from the Corntown side of things, because that's where we are. We're in Corntown, Illinois, so all this great hip-hop stuff realistically is coming from other spaces. Like we can say we developed it, but like how did we get the ingredients? That wasn't grown around here.
Certainly wasn't corn, certainly wasn't beans.
No. So that's, I think we're geographically, and then just like I said, like with the university and like some of the government things that have happened that have connected Champaign to other spaces have probably helped along the way. We've always had strong music, like even if it's not just hip hop too, right? Like we've always been a standout community. We have an REO play here, and whatever else, places like the Record Service and things like that were way ahead of their time doing stuff in Champaign-Urbana musically. I don't really know why exactly is, but I've had people in other communities, and it sucks because this conversation was done in like a negative tone, right? It was done as this was like a way to like insult, but what this person said, they referred to Champaign as like the ivory tower of like hip hop. I was like, damn, it's like, is that what people think like from the outside? Is that what the other central, and apparently it is. People in the other communities are like, oh, Champaign got it going on. They're popping. Because here we're so in our own heads and, squabbling family matters, and we see all these issues. But from some of these other spaces, there's spaces like Peoria that are bigger or have more African American citizens. So in theory, you're thinking the talent pool is bigger, but they have no space to do hip hop. They have no healthy platforms. They just, I don't know what Peoria's problems are, right? They probably got their own downtown Illuminati or whatever, ruining things. But for whatever reason, Champaign does like stand tall, which is cool. I'm fortunate. Like I feel privileged to be, a part of that and a beneficiary of, that strength.
When you put your answer in that context, it does really emphasize how important it is to have venues that do showcase hip hop and do have hip hop shows.
I think at the root of it, the big thing is just more spaces and in different tiers spaces. Even at Canopy, like I love Canopy, right? But sometimes it's nice to do a show that doesn't have the pressure of turning on a 30-foot video wall. And you don't have to send home 4 different bartenders with X amount of money, So that's why smaller spaces, no pun, or the gallery or, Rose Bowl, these other spaces, like they're critical too. I wish they were doing a little bit more, right? And that's not a knock at them. They got to run their own business. Like I'm not judging, but I wish there were other spaces doing a little bit more. They can't all be the same space, right? We can't fill up a 500 person room, right? We need to be able to do coffee shops. We need to be able to do more stuff at like Exile on Main and things like that. You need all that stuff. Canopy's cool for the big shows and raking in the tickets and the fame, but like that, you need more. Having the right people is the thing, but the space is the number one. If you got the spaces, then hopefully the right people come through, and the education and the opportunity, come along with that. Like genuine opportunity too, not the, like I said, back to like the trope of like the bad promoters. There's a culture of like selling people a dream of like, we're going to have this A&R come, you got to pay $100 to perform, and we're going to have this A&R in the house, and then like he's going to see you and whisk you away on tour. And people really like sell that sort of stuff, and like that's not helping anybody. So you got to be careful that, so when the venue's owners open, they have a responsibility on who they're working, which promoters they're working with.
Champaign is also a band podcast is proud to support Exile on Main Street. Exile on Main Street, located in the old train station building at 100 North Chestnut Street in downtown Champaign, has been helping to build record collections since 2004. Carrying a wide array of new and used LPs, CDs, and video games. Exile on Main Street has something for just about any music enthusiast and old school gaming devotee. Exile also hosts regular free live music shows on its stage, so be sure to check out their Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter pages for the up-to-date details on the next upcoming event. Open 7 days a week, they can be reached by phone at 217-398-MAIN. That's 217-398-6246.
Welcome back. So, Robert, what is your favorite non-musical thing or things?
My most favorite non-musical thing is my dog. My dog named Bogart. He's an 11-year-old Akita. He just had surgery this week.
Ooh.
He is at home in stitches. He got 2 masses removed. He's old, but he's doing okay. Didn't even have to put a cone on him. Doesn't seem like he's scratching or licking or nothing. So as of right now, he's just at home chilling. And he's a good boy.
How did you find him? Or
so my mother was always involved with Akita rescue in the area, right? Taking mistreated Akitas and rescuing. I don't know if you're familiar with that whole premise, but she's one of the people that be running into puppy mills and shutting down pet stores and like all that sort of stuff. And
wow.
So I was around Akitas my whole life. Like a couple that we had bought, like were own, but like most of them were just like trauma cases, just everything from like physical problems like hip dysplasia to being super dog aggressive, people aggressive, just like all types of different dogs. So kind of grew up around that, and then had Akitas pretty much my whole life growing up. And then when I became an adult, this was my first like purchase of my own. Did a lot of research and shipped them in from Nova Scotia, from Nova Scotia, Canada, way out there. He came in, I don't know if he came in through like Detroit or Toronto or something, flew into Chicago, went and got him from Chicago. He's definitely a pedigree dog. He's got like champion bloodlines and came with a warranty and bone scans and all that sort of stuff. So it was a big investment, but here we are 11, he's the best investment I've ever made. Been really, really healthy dog and incredibly well trained and nice. Anybody who's ever met my dog would tell you he's about the best dog.
What are like the breed characteristics of an Akita?
They're a Spitz breed, which is a double coated northern breed, like a Malamute. They're slightly smaller than Malamutes. They're bigger than Huskies, but they're that type of dog. Double tail, double coat. Have you ever seen Hachiko the movie? There's a famous story about Hachiko the dog, Japanese dog.
It sounds familiar, but I'm
Disney made like their version, but it's a true Japanese story about Hachiko. So I was around them like my whole life and ordered them and trained him, took him through puppy classes and all that stuff. He's been with me through multiple houses and relationships and all that stuff. So that's my boy.
It's the one, like,
shout out to you, B. I know you're listening.
Oh man, that is one thing I love about the dogs is, and I guess you could say it for any pet, but dogs specifically. I always feel like they're the ones that stay with you. They're the ones that are the consistent ones, right?
My dog has never bit me or scratched me because I like touched him wrong or something. I know I'm not gonna say what other type of animal is known for doing that, but there's this other animal. They're cool. I like that animal a lot, but I've never had my dog just like freak out and claw me and bite me because I like touched him wrong. He's way better behaved than most people.
Robert, thank you so much for being on the show and telling me about Champaign Cypher Saturdays.
Thanks for letting me ramble through it. I need to do like a website, like an archive type thing to like so I can just like point and this is what happened.
If anything, like it's good to have some place, a repository, just something that keeps a record. Once we're gone, you know, those things might remain. So.
After Y2K and all the computers bug out,
right?
What are we gonna do?
Y3K, you know, when that happens. I really appreciate you being on the show, so thank you so much.
Thank you. It was cool. I'm not used to doing the press run, right? But like I said, I'm trying to shed a little bit of light on like the history of what the Cyphers does, and maybe open up, like I'd like to open up to some discussions about getting more venue spaces and pay to play. Like let's do a roundtable discussion about pay to play. Like get Ingram in here and whoever else, and we can like actually talk about like why that's like fundamentally wrong and hurts the scene, or like let's have a discussion about like all the spaces that you can't that isn't Canopy or isn't the space, like hey, we got Rose Bowl, hey, we got IMC, hey, we got, you know, the gallery or whatever. Although they'll do hip-hop shows if the people are like professional and easy to work with, you know, like
right.
they'll work. And then for me, like I didn't start with the Canopy Club, right? They didn't just, oh, you're so great and come work. That wasn't it. I had to show that I could throw successful events at the community center, you know, the same IMC everybody starts at. So that's if people want to get into the game, start booking IMC, you know, hit up DJ BJ Clark and those people, and you know, they'll get you a stage. Thank you for listening to Champaign is Also a Band podcast. This is Robert K with the Champaign Cypher Series. Great music is out there. Go find it where you live.
That's a wrap.
Champaign is also a band.
You almost have an NPR voice. It's so good.
Studio South Speaker on the inside.
My dog has never bit me or scratched me because I like touched him wrong or something.